So when you first receive your Hova Bator, you need to remember that these have been stored for about a year since they were used the last time. And depending on the last person that used it, you really need to remember to clean this thing thoroughly before we use it for the embryology project. Use a few alcohol or Clorox wipes. I'm just going to wipe everything down. So once you've cleaned everything up in the incubator, you're going to replace the lid. Go ahead and plug it in. The cords do come with the incubator. You plug it in. It's preset to 100 degrees. That's close enough for what we're doing. 99.5 is really what we're looking for, but 100 is close enough. Plug it in, and really you need to allow 12 hours to regulate the temperature. Just to get it to where it needs to be. And don't forget to add the water to the troughs before we get started. We don't need near as much water in the beginning as we do at the end, but we need to make sure that that does not ever go dry. You at least want to keep trough number 1 full. You can do 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, or you can do all 4. Just make sure that the humidity is high during the hatching period. That's when we want to soften up the shell. So remember, wash this out, plug it in for at least 12 hours before you put the eggs in there, just to give it time to warm up. And then afterwards, please clean all this out again, because again, it's stored for about a year until they're used again in Lee County schools. So just try to clean this out one more time. Alright, so you get your eggs. These are actually farm eggs here. As you can tell, they're pretty dirty. But you do not want to wash those with soap and water. Because the eggshell is porous and bacteria can actually get into the egg. So we'll just take some sandpaper and clean these off. Alright, we'll take a pencil and we'll mark each side. One side with an X, one side with an O. And we'll place these in the incubator. And the reason we mark these eggs is so when you turn them, you'll remember that you've turned them all the same amount of distance. So try to get them, exactly opposite from each other, the marks. Anytime you handle the eggs, you need to wash your hands before and after. As mentioned before, the egg is very porous. This is to allow gases to pass in and out of the shell. And you just don't want any bacteria to get into the shell while it's during gestation. So you're going to need to rotate your eggs 3 times a day for the first 18 days of the gestation period. So we made this pretty easy to know if you've turned them correctly. Right now, these 3 eggs, you can see the O, and we're just going to turn them over so that you can see the X. Very simple process. So you at least want to have number 1 reservoir full. You can fill up as many as you want. Just make sure that you don't run out of water. So we'll do 1 and 3. But just keep an eye on those, on the water in those troughs. And the way this tray is made, like I'm doing now, you can just pour water directly through it. And you can just keep an eye on the water levels. Okay, so now I'm going to show us putting the lid on the incubator. Now, these incubators are preset. When you plug it in, they're preset to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a pretty good temperature. These eggs really need to be about 99.5. 100 degrees is okay. We're fine with that. Here you'll also see this red plug. During the hatch period, this is just an air plug. During the hatch period, if water droplets start to form on the window, the birds really need to be dried out as soon as they start hatching. So we need to release this vent plug just to allow the air flow in and out to allow the birds to dry. Like I said, we really don't want high humidity, high enough for water droplets to form during the hatch period, because we want these birds to dry out. As I mentioned before, we want high humidity. The later into the gestation period, the higher the humidity you want. So if you start out with only one tray full or two trays full, by the end you really need to keep as much water in there as possible, just to keep the humidity very high, around 70%.